You are listening to the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. ADHD Support Talk Radio is sponsored by addclasses.com. Sign up now for a free webinar by going to www.addclasses.com. This is your co-host, Tara McGillcuddy, and today I am bringing you an interview with Rick Green of TotallyADD.com. And Rick Green and I are going to be talking about productivity and creativity. And this interview originally aired at the ADHD Awareness Expo.
So my name is Rick Green. I am the creative force, I guess, behind a website called Totally ADD. We made a documentary that ran on PBS called ADD and Loving It. It ran thousands of times. And we followed that up with another program called ADD and Mastering It, about what to do about it. They won awards. The website uses comedy, entertainment, and I think we're up to about 75 experts now. And we have videos on, many of them free, but some really great in-depth videos on everything from sleep and cannabis and parenting and relationships, and you name it. There's probably a dozen really terrific long videos that really go into detail, and as I say, feature a lot of experts. So, but they also feature humor, which is a big element of what I do, because I'm a comedy writer with 700 episodes of television and radio under my belt.
Let's get talking about creativity and productivity when you have ADHD, and this is definitely something you have experience with, Rick.
Absolutely. We score higher for creativity. There's a number of studies are confirming this now. There was one in 2008 or 9 out of the University of Memphis. We, on average, score higher for creativity, but the study specifically stated there was they didn't know whether that meant we were producing more creative works, and that's ultimately the bottom line. I'm also right in the middle of editing an epic 5-video series on medication, which will be ready in a week and a half from now. And in that, a number of people with ADHD, adults, talk about the fact that they themselves never complete what they want to do. They have so many great ideas, more than most people, and it's the getting them done. And I know that feeling because I've had thousands of ideas. I've also had thousands of ideas that actually did get completed, and I have many, many more times that many that never got completed, never turned into anything. And I, along the way, at first beat myself up for that because I had a number of screenplay ideas, and then I was able to let that go once I understood I have ADHD, and I'll stick to what I've been really good at, and that is skit comedy writing, short skits, and that's what I can do well. So there's a bunch of different, we think of creativity as something inspired and so on. Nobody can quite explain it, but it's not magical.
It's that double-edged sword. Sometimes it's great, but sometimes it can, slice you.
Yeah, and you really have to be prepared that 99% of what you do is not going to be saleable, or at the beginning anyway. I did a webinar with an animator, and it was amazing because I said, draw a character, and he started drawing. He drew out a shoe, and this is a guy who's been doing this for 20 years, 25 years, and he drew the shoe, and he erased it, and drew a shoe, and erased it. It took him 3 tries to get the shoe he wanted. This is a guy who's been drawing continuously, and he's prepared. And when we're shooting videos with experts, I often say, listen, the biggest stars in Hollywood, the most talented actors, get 9 takes. They get chance after chance after chance. And then somebody goes through and picks the exact best one. So with creativity, you have to be willing to fail. The problem with ADHD is you may have had a lifetime of that, and it's frustrating when you fail. Mm-hmm. But nobody would expect to pick up a guitar and then be able to suddenly play it. You're going to make some bad notes. We don't give ourselves that freedom when we write or we draw or do other things.
So what are the things that you found are helpful to be productive and creative at the same time?
Good question. So I've been thinking about this since you called. One is, like anything with ADHD, chunk it up. So you may have an idea for an article or a speech or a product. You don't have to think it all the way through. Start. What is one aspect of this that we can work on? For example, with the videos that we've done, we've often started, someone has said something in an interview, an expert, when I'm interviewing them, and that resonates, and I ask the next 8 experts about it, and suddenly there's this video. So starting with something small, chunking things up, always useful. If you're going to be drawing, Even the greatest artists in the world do dozens and dozens of sketches before they start on the actual painting. So break it up, break it up, break it up. When you're writing a song, you might have a riff or a bridge or whatever, a chorus, and you don't have to solve it all at once. And that actually kind of leads to the second thing, which is getting started, because people get intimidated. And one of the things I've learned is not to show people things, because everyone will, either they'll have an idea or, who knows. So if you fail, that's fine. There's this whole, on your computer, delete system. Mm-hmm. Watching that animator, he worked on a computer, on a touch screen with a pen as he drew his animation, and he just tap, erase, tap, erase, tap. So but he started where he knew he wanted this character to start with, big feet, and that's where he drew. So when I have an idea for a skit, I did a skit many years ago, which I love. A guy arrives at Pearly Gate, and St. Peter checks his name. You've been a good man. Enter and join your fellow Presbyterians. Oh, no, I'm Catholic. Oh, go to hell. Next. What? No. Heaven's reserved for those who follow the one true path. Presbyterians? Yes, Presbyterians. What about everybody else? They go to hell. Next. No, wait a minute. And it goes on and on. And so, but I had this image of just the guy standing there. Presbyterian. I picked Presbyterian because it sounded funny. So starting where you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. Come back and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. Writing is rewriting. Artwork is painting over and over and over. Sorry.
No, that's great advice.
Another thing that I found is when I'm stuck, there's a couple of things I'll do for if I need an idea. When we did the Red Green show, I bought a stack of books. They're probably around somewhere here, of outdoorsmen and how to survive in the woods and alone in the woods and handyman's tricks in the woods and so on. And it was full of ideas. And then the show was about a bunch of guys at a lodge. So I also drew from Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I would tap into some emotion as well. So the ideas were around. Reading a newspaper. It's hard not to read a newspaper or listen to the news today without getting a whole bunch of ideas for comedy. But tapping into the emotion as well of, in that scene called Heaven is for Presbyterians, just the poor guy who spent his whole life and it was the wrong one. And there's just this pathetic guy and there's St. Peter, next, we got to keep it moving here, So in any case, when you're writing a blog about your ADHD, when you're talking to a teacher, when you're giving a talk to kids about ADHD, whatever, you want to tap into emotion because that's what moves us. That's what gets people, that's beyond information. I could give you all kinds of tips and strategies and or you could have someone who just doesn't believe, and all it takes is one parent going or seeing one child suffering, and everyone goes, oh, I had no idea. Emotion, 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 and then back it up with facts. The other thing that I found with creativity is I started out by imitating other people. So when I was a kid, when I was making funny movies in my early teens, 8mm movies, we kind of did Marx Brothers things, silent comedy, because it was 8mm film. There was no sound. And but the influences were physical comedy. And then it was Monty Python and Carol Burnett. And there were a whole bunch of influences. But I wrote in different voices. And even when I've been writing since, like I've written material for David Steinberg and many, many other comedians, I've written in their voice. And sometimes if I wanted to write something, I might just read a bunch of Woody Allen stuff first, or a bunch of Stephen Leacock or Mark Twain or whatever, to get somebody else's voice, even Tina Fey's voice or whatever. So it's artists and musicians all influence each other, and you want to just be able to draw upon other people. And when people say, oh, I want to find your own voice, it's like, yeah, well, if you're a painter, you want to find your own style. But let me tell you, yellow and blue makes green, and you're going to want to know that. And at some point, you need to know that this, and it would be handy for you had an art dealer who told you nobody's interested in landscapes, they want vertical. Okay, I can do vertical. I'll just paint my painting inside that. So imitating other styles, other people, and then because if you're drawn to someone, so for me, say Monty Python or the Marx Brothers or whoever I was drawn to, they resonated with me for some reason. So they were kind of like my own voice. And then, do we have time for one more?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, so another one is and I've read this recently, but I look back at my experience and I realize this is true over the years. Don't share your idea prematurely. Now, when you came up with the idea of doing this whole ADHD thing, right, at some point you stewed for a while on your own, and then you started putting some feelers out. Is anyone interested in, and you talked to a few people and got positive feedback. But if it's just at a conversation at a dinner, if they've been, we had dinner together, if we were all at a dinner at a conference and you threw this out, and everybody went, yeah, that'd be great, yeah, it probably won't happen as much. Yep. It has to sit inside here and burn a bit. And often, I've often had ideas that by the time I came down to write them, the juice had gone out of it. Whereas that article, I'll go back to that scene about getting into heaven for the poor Presbyterian, that came after reading an article that was written by the religious editor of a major newspaper, and he interviewed all of these different faiths. You name it. There's probably 25 faiths that he interviewed, and they each had their own view of the afterlife. And half of them were, whatever you follow is good. We're all going to somewhere. We have different names. And then there were other ones who were, oh no, it's us. You. And then the thing was, you don't get to go anywhere, or you go to hell if you're not. I mean, it was this lovely range, and I just thought that's so great. Part of it made me angry. It was like, really, okay. Because I better join your religion, otherwise I'll suffer from whatever your religion says I'm going to suffer from for not joining. It was just kind of...
I found people are not always ready for my ideas or even my finished products at some point. When you're an innovator, when you're creative, and if you put the ideas out, that can set you back. You can take that personally. So that is great advice, not to share it with everyone.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's a brilliant observation, because you go back to 1985 and you say to people, how'd you like to carry the phone on your wall? How'd you like to have to carry that around with you? And it'll also have a camera in it. And are you kidding me? And you'll be able to, and big companies will be able to track you, and you'll be able to shop on your phone. What do you think? God, no.
What planet are you from?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I like going to the store. I like standing in line. So, well, it's part of... Anyway, so yeah, sometimes an idea is ahead of its time. Sometimes an idea, like, as I say, I've written stuff and my wife has looked at it, or I've bounced it off someone and they've gone, that's really funny, but you could never read that in public. And I'm like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah.
We'll just ready for it. But even in a bad idea, there's something in there. Mm-hmm. So you're angry about something. You want to change the world, right? So you're trying to alleviate the suffering of people with ADHD. You organize this. If this didn't happen, you don't go, okay, I'm becoming a seamstress.
Yeah.
You're driven by something. So you're already tapping into your emotion. You're starting where you can. You're chunking it up in the steps you took to get here. And this is not probably the first time someone's done an online thing. So you're learning from other people, right? It's not like you invented this software that we're using and so on. You build on what other people are doing. And then what happens is, and people wouldn't necessarily view it, but this whole conference, this online experience, is a creation. You created this. We created this together. And that's the other thing that in working with television, as compared to maybe some other things like painting, it is collaborative. It is a group effort. And so is most of everything that ever happens in the world. I know there's all these books about Steve Jobs, but there were other people involved.
Yes.
And there were a lot of creative people. And he became the arbiter. It's like on The Simpsons, there'll be a head writer who will go, no. And everyone else will go, but, and they go, no, that one's not getting in for whatever reason.
Now, Rick, you've given some great information today. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave people with when it comes to productivity and creativity? And could you give out your awesome website address again?
Oh, sure. Well, the website is totallyadd.com. There's a Facebook page, and there's forums where you can interact with. There's thousands of streams about everything from medication to parenting to children to adults with and so on. And so Totally ADD is the website. And the last piece of advice I would give is don't make it a big thing. That's what I'm going to say. It's just you're trying, you're playing. One of the things that I grew up with was Lego, and I made sure I got it for both my kids. You create, and you create, and you take it apart, and you pull it off, and no, that's not right. And at any point, if there was parent standing there going, well, that's not right. Cars don't have that. cars are not all white, whatever it was, you can see how quickly that would kill it. And you think, what a horrible parent. Well, there's this little voice in your head, the Buddhists call it the monkey mind, and that voice is telling you, yeah, but you're not, and Rick's funnier than you, and Tara can organize this, but she's way more organized than I could never, and whatever it is, right? So don't listen to that voice. Just make it a game and play. And when you play, especially with comedy, but I think with anything, when you're there with a target, you want to move people, touch people, inspire people, then let the creativity flow and just get out of the way.
Great. Thank you so much, Rick Green. And